Hey guys, thanks for hanging out with me again today. I am back here. I think my tentative working title on this one is going to be Newborn Dragon. As you can see, I put it as a step one from the first video where we did some object removal and tried to brighten it up just a little bit. We are in CMYK, so I converted it. I process all of my images. I'm constantly converting them. That's why I'm glad I have that online converter and to go from uh, PNG to CMYK, because if you haven't watched my other videos, CMYK is what printers at the physical machine that prints it. So you can design a great picture and it's in RGB and it looks fantastic, and you can run it through the printer and it comes out and your colors are washed out and they're terrible and they don't look right. And it's because an RGB file inside the printer gets turned into CMYK, which is cyan, magenta, yellow, and key for black, and it cannot do certain super bright, super neon-y type colors. It just can't do them. It doesn't have those colors in its range. So the last thing I want to do is go through this whole design process and get to the end and everything's the way I want it in RGB, and I print it out or put it into CMYK at that stage and it just is off. So what I do is every time I save a step, I go back and I convert it to CMYK so that when I pull it up in PhotoDirector365, I know what I'm looking at, and it's going to be as close to what the actual print is going to look like as it is physically possible to do it on a computer screen, if that makes sense, because there are still variations once it's actually printed out. Some of that depends on paper, some of it depends on the machine, all of those kinds of things, but those aren't the kind of things that we can control. What we can control as artists is, do I consciously make the effort to look at this as close to I can get it to what it's going to look like when either a customer buys it or I buy it and it comes to me printed. And that's very important to me. Maybe some people it's not important to, but to me it's very important. So today on this video, I'm going to do a couple of object moves. Um, might end up doing them as object clones, so we're going to play around with it a little bit. I am going to quickly, because we're working on getting this lighter and lighter and lighter, I'm going to see what the auto color enhancement does at this point in time. And it brought back in a little bit of that blue. I'm fine with that. I'm trying to make sure that this picture is not too dark, because to me, part of the emotion, part of the what I see for this picture is this is supposed to be a bright, happy moment. I don't want it to be gloom and doom. If I'm dealing with a demon or something like that, I want gloom and doom. But if I'm dealing with something like this that's supposed to be light, and, this is a dragon family. It looks like the young lady is holding what would be the new hatchling, the latest addition to the family. So I don't want it to be overly dark. It's not meant to be um, a dark fantasy image. It's meant to be light and bright and joyful, and there's only so much I can do with it, but the more I can get it better, the better it will be. Now I'm going to take a look before I decide whether I'm going to do clone or move. Like, I could nitpick these two little spines right here in this younger dragon's wing, but I'm not going to nitpick that. I'm pretty, you can't really see the ones in here. When we look at mom's wings, we've got one here, two here, three here, four here, and at least five. Maybe more under the folds. But what I'm looking at over here is I've got this that starts but doesn't go anywhere. So what I'm thinking I'm going to have to do is clone this and bring it out here so that we've got, the wing and everything. So we've got another spire, and then I may have to remove this one and remove this one, because when you're dealing with a dragon's wings, like the spires come out and that's where they point out, that's where they make these separations in the wing. Um, and I may actually do this one. No, I need the length to do this one. And that's kind of what I noticed in the last video. If you watched the last video, I wasn't crazy about what was going on here with the exposure. And it's because this wing, the way that the AI generated it, just didn't give me much there. It's like almost transparent. So I'm gonna grab clone. I was thinking I was just gonna have to move one of the spines, but now that I've got it zoomed up, I've actually got to clone it, and then I'm actually gonna have to remove some. Um, Actually, I'm gonna go back to remove. I want that out of there before I even, because the part that I want to clone is going to be quite a bit wider than what I want to do. So I want to go to auto manual removal again, go to manual. I'm going to blow this up even further. And I'm going to take out this extra spine here in the wing. Hopefully it will give me a nice result. Yeah, I'm okay with that. A little darkness in the wing doesn't make that much of a difference. Ooh, that jumped over. I'm going to remove this. Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to leave that there because I may have to use that to align to for the other spine that goes down. But this one here does not terminate in a wing end, so I'm going to pull this one out. And I'm trying to keep my pacing up. I know these videos can run long. I know there's a lot of stuff to watch and deal with in here, but try to keep my pacing up for you guys. I'm okay with that. You know, it actually adds to lack of transparency in the wing, which is what I was kind of not liking up further. So I may actually steal some of that when I go through cloning. I'm up too high to do clone at this point. 100 is not going to be high enough, so I'm going to put 150 in our custom box there and tap enter. That will give me 150%. And as long as I can get this whole area, this whole thing that I want, that's where my zoom I want to be at. So I'm going to go to Object Clone, and I'm going to take, first off, I'm going to do the spine, and then I'm going to take a little bit of a look at using my roller ball here to make the brush size smaller, because having this perfect is not going to be super, super important as far as these outer edges, because I do want it to look a little bit different. I'm going to kind of go like this. I may end up trimming some of this once I actually move it, um, but I kind of want to have some options on either side in terms of uh, what it's going to look like up against once we have it put in place where we're going with it next, which is right next door, making this wing look a little bit better. Now you see I got one little spot in here, and if I don't take care of that, that's actually going to leave a hole right there in the cloning spot. I think I'm going to push this out just a little bit more on both sides because we want some nice wing structure around that area, and I might push it down a little bit more over here. I'm not opposed to having some of that darkness in there. I think I'm going to see what that does. I think I'm going to see if that gives us what we want. And I'm going to have to move over a little bit here. I may have to rotate this some. As you can see, we've got a fairly decent sized box, and I am going to have to rotate it because I want it to kind of align with this spine here. And I'm gonna have to rotate it some more. So this is just kind of a, where are we going with it? What are we doing? Whoops. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to make it any larger. Because you got to remember, if you clone something and then you make it larger, you're actually going to end up with um, you're actually going to end up uh, changing the resolution in that box. So if you shrink it down, the DPI goes up. If you pull it out, the DPI goes down in, so you're lowering the quality compared to the areas around it. And this object clone does alter a little bit, I think, the resolution that you're working with, because it's not like an exact thing. I may move this over just a little bit. Um, whoops. Let's see what I can see here. That looks pretty good to me. Um, I might just want this over a little bit more, just so that it connects a little bit better. I think I'm happy with that there. I'm going to move back to where I can find the checkbox, or I can actually just click apply. And now let's back out of here a little bit, see what we got. And I'm okay with that. I think that looks a lot better. It gives us an extra, you know, swoop here. I may have to go in there and do something right there. Whoops, 200's too high. 100, let me take a look here. Yeah, see, we've got this area here that's just not looking right. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this. I'm going to clone this out and see how we can arrange it in here. So I should be able to do that. And why I'm doing it here is I don't want this to look redundant. So I'm actually, you know what? No, I'm not going to do that one. I'm going to do this one here. I'm going to get just want a little bit of that edge so that we've got something to do with it. I don't really want, um, oops. Sometimes it's hard to remember what these things do. You hit Alt. Actually, I'm just going to go up to the negative brush because I'm going to push this. I pushed it back in too far. Darn it. Come on, go on the right one. See, this is what's fun about this is I'm always trying to figure things out. Um, and what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to keep taking a little bit more of this wing because having some veins in it doesn't bother me. Um, I just don't want it to be an exact replica of what we've got going on down here. So I kind of want to piece this together, and I can always go back and do some object removal and stuff like that if I'm not happy with what it is. But I'm going to take this up here, and as you can see, we've got to get it rotated. Um, and it's a little bit hard to see over here. Now you can see we're not going to be the right size. So I'm going to have to sacrifice a little bit of the resolution to get our size. But it looks good about there. Let's see what we got. Oh man, that turned out cool. That's great, man. I like the way that turned out. There's a little bit of weirdness right here, but I think we can chalk that up to a little bit of nature. That turned out pretty cool. that wing looks 100 times better um, than what I had before. I don't think I really need to do any more cloning or moving at this point in time. Um, I just, wow, that worked. That worked great. That's nice. That's cool when you get and you're like, when you're using these object clones and object moves and removals and stuff like that, there's always the chance that it's just not gonna work. I've had to like abandon an image because I couldn't get something to work well enough um, where I could feel comfortable with it. Now, I am going to, because we did go out, we saved this and we did some other things. I am going to try denoise again just to see what it gives me. And it may not do much, or it may do a lot. It's hard to say. So it says it's done. Let me clear it out. Sorry, guys. I know I'm maybe even off camera right now, but I'm really looking because this is not going to do a ton, but it did clean it up just a little bit. So I'm going to go okay with that. Uh-oh, we don't need to see any of them. Um, I'm liking that. I'm going to check the auto color enhancement again um, because as we do things with the picture, there's always a chance to go back. Like I'm going to deblur and see if deblur does anything as far as I'm concerned. It may add to it. It may take away from it. It may not do anything. Um, Clear that off. See what it actually did. Clear it again. I kind of like that effect down there on the flowers. Let's see what it did with the head of the dragon. Nah, if you look up here, this looks nice and smooth. And when I apply that, see how we get a little pixelization up here? And it's a little hard to see, but I know what I'm looking for. So I'm not going to do that. Because the last thing I want is pixelization, because as you know, my images get printed out much larger than the screen on my laptop. And I just don't I'm trying to provide the cleanest, clearest picture that I can do for my customers. And that's what's important to me. Now, if I go in here, we're going to go back out to, we're going to play around again with, well, we should be zoomed up if we're going to play with sharpness. It should always be zoomed up nice and close, particularly to detailed things, scaling, the heads of the dragons, any of the scale work, any of her lace on her dress, because we've already sharpened this in the previous. So if we start to get too sharp, see what happens to the little guys? If we start to get too sharp, so I think what I'm going to do, instead of sharpness, I may still do a little bit at the end. Dehaze, I want to be all the way out on the picture because I want to see what it's doing to the whole picture. See, now that's a decent way of breaking it up, but at the same time, God, that's cool. Man, that's almost like magically cool. I didn't want this to be dark, but let me see what exposure does with the dehaze. See, and sometimes you stumble across stuff and it's like, oh, hey, that did a really cool job. What can I do that will give me that result, but not that dark? That might be a little bit too much exposure, and it might be a little too much dehaze. So you can kind of play back and forth with it. Let's do 60 there. Ooh. Let me see what we do if we get a little contrast in here. See, now we can lighten it up with a little bit of contrast. Really kind of want to see what the contrast is doing to the head of the dragon and to her. Because I don't want them to get like super weird or anything. I think for about 40, maybe 45 on the contrast. And then we'll check with clarity. Boy, oh boy. Oh boy, boy, oh boy. That might be too much on the clarity. See what it's doing to his wing and around the head. I want to go super high on this, but I think we definitely need some um, around here. This is just coming out freaking cool. Play with vibrance a little bit. We'll go with saturation instead. Man, oh man, oh man. You know what? I'm just not going to go crazy. I am going to leave a little bit of saturation in it. I am going to leave a little bit of vibrance in it. Let's set those both at 20 because I'm still doing other things to this picture. I think I really need to um, do some work on maybe individual dragons on this, maybe getting a little more color. You know, maybe this dragon is a slightly lighter color. Maybe this dragon's a slightly greener color. And I can do all that in layers. Um, and that's this this is going to be one of my most complex pictures, I have a feeling, because of the layers. I'm going to play with sharpness just a little bit, and then we're going to call it a day on this. Um, we're not getting a whole lot on the sharpness end of things, but I do kind of want to make it sharper. See what this looks like in 200. Yeah, I don't know if I need sharpness on this. Look at her. Yeah, see, it's when you're zoomed out, it looked like it was brightening it up and making it better, but when you zoom in, you can see it's actually pixelating it out. So I'm just going to go with what I had at this point in time. We're going to save this one as step 2. I'm really kind of liking what's going on here. And I got a long way to go on this one. So I've got, however I'm going to split it up for coloring, however I'm going to do those kinds of things. I've still got lighting effects to do to it, but this is the direction I wanted to go in. This is like a family portrait, the nanny, if you will, is cuddling the new hatchling dragon, and mom's keeping a watchful eye, and so are its siblings. But that's going to do it for this one. Guys, thanks for hanging out with me. Oh, this went longer than I thought it was going to. I just saw the timer. Remember, let the chaos out, and we'll see you on the next one.